Howdy, I'm Papa Penguin, and here's my pontifications on Andy Stumpf and Nate C. Uh, talking about veterans trying to scam disability. Uh, so, for those of you that don't know, there is currently a movement underway to basically try and balance the budget on the backs of veterans. A lot of this is coming from policy wonks and ivory tower academics. But unfortunately, there's also a not insubstantial amount of support amongst some of my fellow veterans. And on that note, let me introduce you to Soft Bros Nate C. from Valhalla VFT and Andy Stumpf from the Cleared Hot podcast. Nate's a former Green Beanie. He was a comms guy. And Andy is a former frog. Both are combat veterans and have a pretty substantial following on the internet. And both of them have been stating with the absolute confidence of the ignorant that veterans are categorically cheating the system to collect disability in massive numbers. Both of these gentlemen are wrong. Both have no actual facts or data to support their arguments. They're basing all of their positions on their feelings, at least so far. Hell, Nate doesn't even understand how veteran disability gets funded through the VA. Right? He thinks VA disability funding comes out of the DoD budget. So this video is going to be a little rough, as Nate likes to say.
Be a very hard truth video.
I've got some hard truths for both of these gentlemen, and if you don't like it, cover your ears. And should either of you, Nate or Andy, want to discuss this further, I'm more than happy to have these conversations via phone, in person, on camera. You're both wrong, and I'll be more than happy to explain to your face on camera over the phone whatever you want while you're wrong. Doesn't have to be for public consumption. But you're both wrong factually, and you're both wrong morally for the position that you're taking to advocate topping disability to veterans. So, on that note, let's get ready to rumble.
Because this is a very delicate topic. If you say anything about disabled veterans, people lose their mind. If you the idea that a veteran would lie about their disability conditions for benefits,
It's not that I'm personally butthurt. It's that you and Andy accused a huge proportion of veterans of being liars, thieves, and fraudsters with zero evidence. No evidence to back up your accusations, just your feeling. That's where I have a problem.
All right, well, why am I making this video? I'm here to provide context to Andy's comments.
Providing context to another man's words, that's a little odd. I mean, Andy's a full grown man who can, provide his own context to his own words, but okay, you do you.
I actually came in my last year of my military career from an Army medical retirement, medical board, soldier recovery unit. So I know intimately how these things work themselves out.
You are a subject matter expert because you spent one whole year at one whole unit going through the process one whole time. You are literally a sample size of one. You are not a subject matter expert, and you are not intimately familiar with the process. The only thing you're intimately familiar with is your one experience going through the system. That's it. You're not a subject matter expert. Don't pretend you are.
That there are, in fact, fraudulent claims inside of the VA disability system. A number was thrown out there. It was 50%. I did not accuse 50% of veterans of being a fraud when it comes to their VA disability claim. I actually refused to give a number. I did say that I think it was closer to 50% than the number that was pitched back to me. And here's the deal.
The deal is, number one, you just admitted you have no evidence to support your position, right? I think. Number one. Number two, you accused an overwhelming percentage of veterans, closer to 50% than not, right, of committing fraud. To commit fraud, that means you have to lie, cheat, and steal. You called a significant proportion of veterans liars, cheaters, and thieves by saying they're committing fraud. It's real simple. A politician answer doesn't change that. I love your podcast. I think you're funny as hell. You're dead wrong on this.
Is Andy wrong about what he said? I'm going to tell you guys, not only is Andy right about what he said, it's far, far worse than what he initially was explaining to you guys.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong.
You have any evidence to support that assertion?
The internet, right, in its infinite wisdom, has taught people how you can actually game the system that way.
Really? Criticizing people for using the internet to help navigate a absolutely Byzantine and frequently hostile process. Really, that's a criticism. I don't know what to say to that.
Now, is that all soldiers? No, but there is a lot of that, okay? You might not like hearing that, but it's not untrue.
Is it almost 50%? Is it more than that? Now you're saying that it's significantly less than. I don't know. You're not making a cogent argument here. You keep changing your argument. That makes no sense. So pick a number, even if you're making it up. Pick a number and stick with it. And as far as it's true whether someone likes it or not, no, it's not true. You have no data. You're literally making this up, pulling it out of your fourth point of contact, as you paratrooper types would say. You have zero actual data to support what you're saying. You're basing all your allegations off of your one whole year, that one command, going through the process one time to apply it across the entirety of the Department of Defense. That is an irresponsible and frankly juvenile argument.
I'm not sure if we want to call it a problem or not. It's kind of a moral quandary about how we want to look at this, is how easy it is to get VA disability percentages based off certain claims. I'm going to give you some, okay? PTSD is a big one, right? Very difficult to disprove someone has PTSD. If I've been through a traumatic event, which I have PTSD, a doctor can't really tell me I don't have it.
All right. But this is frankly one of the sillier things that you say in this whole video. So number one, doctors absolutely tell patients whether they have a disease state or not all the time. That's literally what they do. They say, hey, you have X disease, or hey, you don't have Y disease. They literally do this. They have to, for the med board PB disability process, they literally have to write a diagnosis down on a piece of paper or enter it in your medical record. They do that by using diagnostic criteria and performing tests, exams. Sometimes this stuff takes time. The fact that you don't have the knowledge, training, or experience to understand how that works and how they evaluate those data points does not mean that they can't say no. It just means you don't understand how it works. Second point I want to make, and this is especially for any youngsters that follow you or Andy or anybody else that are looking to enter the profession of arms, and they look up to you guys. This is the kind of overconfidence bias that drives people up the wall and ends up with patients having bad outcomes. Is leadership thinking they understand medical stuff when they don't have a damn clue, right? Leaders thinking they understand stuff when they have no clue about it. So what you need to do, youngsters, is this kind of stuff. Don't pay attention to it from these guys. It is very clear that he is not an 18 Delta, right? There is no 18 Delta on the face of the earth that would ever say what he is saying right now. He has minimal to no medical training, probably throwing tourniquets on a handful of times. But dude, you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to medical stuff. So just stop talking.
Okay. Now, The big ticket one, and this is going to make everybody uncomfortable, right? Because you can't blame victims, and I'm not, is sexual assault allegation claims. So if you didn't know, in the military, there's a system to where which you can report a sexual assault against you, not from necessarily another service member, just in general. Could have happened just in at a nightclub, whatever you were doing. It requires no proof. It requires no police report. It requires no reporting whatsoever, just the submission of it. That then is an automatic 50% or above VA disability rating when you go to medically board or medically retire or get out. There's no way to back check that. There's no way to prove it or disprove it.
Nate, you really, really need to get evidence before you start making claims. Number one, we ended up where we're at with the process being what it is because commands were horrifically mistreating victims on this issue. That's just simple fact. So things changed, justifiably so. If you don't like that, well, maybe look to your left and to the right at those leaders that you served with who twiddled their thumbs and didn't do anything when these kinds of things happened. Two, the fact that you didn't see it happen tells me that you were probably in special operations your entire career, so your experience supervising females, supervising or supervising females, or having female bosses or female peers, probably pretty minimal. Sexual assault stuff happens, unfortunately, more frequently than anybody thinks. I'll put up right around here a graphic, a pamphlet from DoD. The Army today, the Army in 2023, 7.4% of women in the Army reported unwanted sexual contact. 7.5% in the Navy, 10.8% in the Marine Corps, 4.6% in the Air Force, and 6.1% in the Space Force. And then for men across the board, it was, a little over 1% for almost every branch. 12.2% of active duty women and an estimated 2% of active duty men under the age of 21 have suffered unwanted sexual contact. So this is a problem. How about you stop being an ostrich, right? Or at the very minimum, don't weigh in on something you haven't done any sort of research on, right? Just because you don't see things happen doesn't mean they aren't happening. There is a saying in research circles. It's called "the absence of evidence is not the same thing as the evidence of absence." Just because you don't see something doesn't mean it isn't happening.
Under the entire budget of the Department of Defense, I'm pretty sure benefits is the largest spending ticket number.
So, Nate, clearly you don't understand how disability stuff is allocated. So we'll talk about this and we'll use some facts and figures. So if you look up on right here, we have the DoD retired military personnel survivors and programs cost from 2006 to 2017. Harder to get any more recent numbers. And if you look, disability for retirees, because the VA system, the VA disability system is funded separately, right? This is for people who get medically retired out of the military. There's two different pools of money, and not everybody who has a VA rating has a rating through their branch. So in 2017, $1.59 billion went to disability. That was a year. In 2017, the DoD budget totaled out to be over $600 billion. How much money are you saving by going after $1.59 billion in disability, right? So it's not a strain on the DoD system. There is far more waste, fraud, and abuse in the DoD system they could go after. And we could start by, going after the ridiculous budgets that you soft people have, right? Your soft compadres. I mean, For Christ's sake, DevGru created their own airframe, a stealth helicopter. You guys got budgets to create entire experimental airframes. That's insane. But, right, so let's look at the VA disability system. Where does that fall? Well, the VA is number 5 in the list of expenditures for the DoD, or for the United States, right? And that's after fighting America's longest war. So, yeah, we would expect the payments to be a bit more stiff, to take up more money. So the totality of funding the entire VA program, including disability, is 6% of the national budget. The Department of Defense gets more than double that, 14%. The Department of Treasury, the agency responsible for collecting tax revenue, is the 3rd largest spender in our budget. Social Security is 21% of the budget. The Department of Health and Human Services is 28%. So how about, instead of going after these minuscule amount of the budget that comes from veteran disability, how about we go where large portions of graft and theft and actual fraud is occurring, right? Instead of you advocating to cannibalize fellow veterans, right? Maybe get some facts and figures, maybe think things through before you get on here arguing that more than 50% of veterans are dirtbags who are scamming the system.
Have contracted out to doctors all over the place as QTC doctors, where you go in based off of claims that you've submitted, right? If I got bad knees or shoulders or whatever, and the doctor evaluates me. Most likely, and most of these claims, it's a 20 to 30-minute appointment or less, where I tell the doctor what my issues is. He writes it down on a clipboard, gives me a thumbs up, and I move along my way. And then I get my VA disability claim for it, okay? That is unfortunately how the system works.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah, that's not what QTC does. QTC is a medical records review. It is a review of your medical records. That's all it is. It's not an exam. There's a huge difference, right? The QTC's doctor, their whole purpose in life is to review your records, ask you a few clarifying questions to determine if you have enough evidence to support pushing your claim forward, right? That's the first safety valve, the first step in the process, the first check in the box to make sure actual fraud isn't happening, right? So if I go into my QTC doctor and I say, hey, doc, I lost my left arm in an IED blast in Iraq, and I'm sitting there with my left arm, I have no records to say I suffered an injury. That doctor is going to say, sorry, not enough information to put this claim forward. You need to go back and get more information. That's what QTC doctors do. The fact that you don't know that means more likely you had your hand held through the whole process, right? And people were just rubber stamping everything that you claimed. So, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about here either. I know that's a shocker for anybody watching because this is a video of me talking about you not knowing anything about this topic at all, while you're purporting to make yourself sound like you're some sort of subject matter expert. So that being said, that kind of wraps up this video. I know it's long. I appreciate you guys, everybody watching this who wrote this out. This is Andy and Nate and these other veteran influencers who are coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, there's all kinds of fraud happening in the veteran disability system." They're just making this shit up, right? They don't have any facts, figures, numbers. They more often than not, it's like this video here with Nate where they don't even really understand how the system works. To Nate and Andy, like I said earlier, if you guys want to have a conversation about this, if you feel some kind of way, I'm more than happy to have this conversation via phone, email, webcam, in person, whatever. It can be private, doesn't have to be for public consumption. And I'll be more than happy to explain to you in further detail why you are both factually and morally wrong for your stance on this. Um, so you can find my email and my profile on YouTube, various social media platforms. Shoot me an email. Be more than happy to talk to you. And all that being said, for you guys who are still watching it, which is probably a whole zero people, but if you're still watching it, Andy and Nate have good channels that talk about all kinds of amazing stuff. They're great when they stay in their swim lane. But you start getting overconfidence bias, you start getting to platforms where you're surrounded by yes men and sycophants. It can become very easy to slip into talking about stuff that you're not informed on. And don't be intellectually lazy, y'all. You want to take a position on something, do a little bit of research. All the data and stuff I pulled up in pretty much one afternoon. I spent more time making and editing this video than I had to spend gathering evidence in this particular case. It's not terribly hard often to find the basic facts on something. So that being said, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, listening to me flap my gums. Y'all take care. Papa Penguin out.